Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Marketing Inc. I have a very special guest with me today, Miss Amy Ransdell. So, Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I'm really honored. I'm excited to talk to all of your audience.
Yeah, so I think this is a topic that a lot of people really need. But before we dive into that, why don't you give everyone a quick background and an introduction on who you are, what you do, and how you came to this point in your life?
Absolutely. Well, that's a complicated question.
A brief summary.
Yeah, right. I'll give you the cliff notes. So I'm here because I know you guys work with a lot of small business owners, entrepreneurs wanting to scale, be more efficient, and so forth. And I am one of those. So I am like your audience. I am a small business owner, multi-business owner, and have always been in the entrepreneurial small business space for 20 plus years. And in that path, one of the many things that I have gotten deeply involved in was the use of virtual assistants to be able to outsource so many things to, so that I could manage everything. And that led ultimately to my actually teaming up with another, the CEO and founder of Riva Global. And so I'm here today mostly to talk about what we do at Riva Global, which is that we provide virtual support for small business owners. And I always throw into everybody, I'm on multiple businesses. I'm also a single mom. And I always throw this in because I'm family oriented, family values first. And I truly could not do all that I do without virtual assistants. So I'm the one that I break the mold. So hopefully today I can kind of help express that to everyone and help guide them to some of those same decisions I went through.
Yeah, absolutely. And so today, obviously, talking about virtual assistants and how to utilize virtual assistants inside of your business, no matter what type of business that may be. So something that I've seen really clearly is that obviously entrepreneurs in the online space tend to be a little bit more informed about this. It's something that's a little bit more commonplace. And there are a lot of people that are running online businesses as well that are listening today, but there's also a lot of bricks and mortar business owners that maybe really don't understand that a virtual assistant could be of help in their business. So before we dive in, let's kind of go over the basics. What exactly is a virtual assistant and what type of business can best utilize one?
Yes. And I love this question because, again, we make like this presupposed idea of what they are, or we'll think about movies where they've made fun of outsourcing and things like that. Like that's what goes through our head, right? Or maybe you even experienced trying to hire one and had a horrible experience. So you also have sort of this frame in your mind of what they are. To make it the most simplest definition, a virtual assistant is anyone who's supporting you in your business virtually. That's really for the base decision. And by the way, virtual assistant doesn't have to mean somebody in another country. It can be somebody a state away in the same town who works from home. Because here's the thing, 90% of what we all do almost anymore, 90% is done by computer or phone. And what that means is that anyone can do the same tasks as long as they have a computer or phone. And so they can be anywhere. So that's really what it means to hire someone virtually. It means they're just not in your physical office or your physical shop or your physical whatever that is. Like I have chiropractors, hair salons, all these people who hire virtual assistants. Once they start to realize that they don't have to have someone physically in the shop to accomplish so many things for them. So that's really the most simplest decision or simplest definition of what that is. It's anything you want to outsource to somebody that can be done by phone or computer.
Yeah. And so really that opens up the possibilities significantly. So why don't you kind of get some wheels turning for people who are listening right now and are maybe thinking, okay, well, that sounds like there are a lot of options, but what could I potentially utilize a virtual assistant for in my own business?
Yes. And so I'm going to do this in two quick parts. The first part, before we talk about like actual tactical things, because I know everybody wants like a very tactical specific list, and I'm going to help with that. But before we jump into that, I like to get a little abstract for a minute and just say, okay, all of you guys listening, you're probably doing tasks every day in your small business that are $10, $15 an hour type tasks. But you don't want to let go of them. You don't think anybody else can do them. You don't have time to train someone else. You're concerned about bringing someone on and the expense instead of the investment of a person. You're looking at it as an expense. And so we tend to hold on to a lot of things. And here's just a reality statement, because this will help you guys let go and release and get creative with me, is that if your business needs to be making a certain amount of revenue every week, every month, quarter, year, understand that if you're a small business and you are, maybe you're 1, 2, 3, 5-man team, you and your group, your people are all doing $10, $15 an hour tasks every day, you're capping your income to look like someone who makes $15 an hour. This is just, you got to get in this mindset with me, right? So let yourself do that first. Then start looking at everything that you're doing and start to realize what could you eliminate? What could your team members eliminate? Empower them to do that. What could they automate with technology? And then that's what's left is what you can outsource or have to delegate to someone in your office. Walk through those steps if you look at everything you're doing. Because here's the thing, on the tactical side, there's almost nothing you can't have done by virtual support. So I could overwhelm you with thousands of tasks. Okay, we're going to get into a couple specific ones in a second, but you walk through that steps, because I promise you that if you'll do what I just walked through of looking at all the stuff you're doing, being honest with yourself about what can be done for $10, $15 an hour kind of thing, or $100 or less per hour, depending on what your revenue scale is, and line out what those things are, put them into boxes by personality and experience type, a virtual assistant can do them. In the world of marketing, for example, virtual assistants can do content creation, blog articles, graphic assets, advertise for you, place advertisements for you, do all of your social selling. They can manage all of your email inbox, right? They can be the one responding to people in your marketing funnels. Like all of that can be done by a virtual assistant and much, much more. And so, you can guide me as to what you think might be some of the most common needs for your people, and I'll explain how virtual assistants can do them. But it is a vast list.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the things that I recommend people do when they are considering hiring somebody for virtual work is to really do a time study first. So take an inventory of where you are spending your time every 15 minutes per day for 2 weeks. And once you do that, you are going to see exactly what you've been doing. And then it makes it so much easier to really identify, okay, this is a task that can only be done by me. This is a task that does not have to be done by me. And really, like, those 2 boxes can be a great place to start, because I think people do tend to get overwhelmed just trying to look at everything they might consider having someone do. But obviously, there are certain things that only you can do. Everything else, it is possible to delegate those. And you may not start with every single one of them, but at least if you understand on an individual basis where you're spending your time, and you can look at that and say, okay, that anyone could be doing that, yet I am still doing it. You'll get your short list essentially of where you probably need some help with first.
Yes. And we do the same thing, a time study. And I will tell you, to have some markers in your hand. So after you go through the 2 weeks of doing that, right, I want you to have 3 markers in your hand: black, red, and green. Okay. And I want you to black through everything first, where you can just admit to yourself, you know what, I really don't even need to be doing that. Okay. Get rid of a lot of stuff, because that's going to already take some load off. And then circle everything that's green: revenue producing, income producing activity, IPA, not beer, right? Income producing activities that are essential for your business, highest producing or most important decision-making activities that only you can do. Circle those in green. Everything else is red, meaning that, like, if you look at your calendar, like, you're bleeding to death, right? If you're spending all that time, you start to realize how much time is going out that's not coming back for your business. And by the way, all of your team members can do this too. It's very empowering for you to say to them, hey, would you like to have more time doing what's the highest, most revenue generating activities for my business? They will always look at you and say, yes, I would love to have more time for that. Yeah. Great. Help them go through the same steps to get down to that list of what you have left that you can outsource and delegate. And outsource would be virtual support. Delegate would be, I always describe that as that's who's left in your physical office, right? In my real estate business, I have an inspection this afternoon, for example, that requires a physical person in my office to be there. However, the virtual assistant did all the work to coordinate the schedule for that. Right. So if that makes sense for everybody.
Absolutely. So now that you know how you can kind of take a look at your own task, maybe the task of your team, and get this little list together of things that you might be able to effectively outsource, what is the next step for someone if they are thinking about hiring virtual support? Because I do know the interview process and the hiring process is not necessarily a process that every business owner thoroughly enjoys, and oftentimes they're not really doing it correctly so that they do end up with either a lot of wasted time or people who are not a good fit long term. So where do you suggest starting in that process?
Yes. And oh my gosh, I so feel that. Okay. It's really why the Riva Global was founded. Like you're speaking to the reason this even got started. The CEO and founder, myself, we'd worked with thousands of coaching clients for years, small business owners. There's a lot of what we do is in the coaching space. And so we would hear this same battle over and over again. And we were having the same problem too, where we would waste hours and hours going through warehouses of resumes, trying to find the right ones. And we'd interview, then they wouldn't show up, or then we'd hire them, then they'd ghost and disappear, or we think we had the right hire and it wasn't a good fit for whatever reason. And there are countless reasons, right? And so all of that was just a negative experience. Hiring in general, even in our offices, sometimes as small business owners were like, oh, the thought process of going through the resumes and going through all the interviews. So we at Riva Global decided to do everything we could to solve those problems, right? So we at Riva are not a warehouse of resumes. Now, you guys can go out there and find VAs all kinds of ways, right? Like I hire from Fiverr.com myself, a VA to do some singular specific task.
Yeah.
At Riva Global, we are placing full-time or part-time assistants. So we actually do the hiring process with you and almost for you. We do a match.com process. So where if I go on to like an Upwork or someplace like that, where I've got to go through resumes and select myself, or if I just randomly go on Facebook and to one of those groups and say, I need a VA, and I get hit up by 100 people.
Yeah.
We solve all that for you guys at Riva. So if you're looking for a part-time or full-time assistant long-term, then we actually interview you. You come to us with your list of stuff, right? We have an intake process where we look at that list with you, help decide with you what's going to be the right personality. Is that a part-time or full-time person, the right experience, the right proficiencies? We go into our already hired pool of virtual assistants, because these are people who have already spent weeks passing our very tight screening process to even be allowed to work for our company. And we find the right ones to fit with you, and we line up the interviews for you. We sit there and interview with you. We have a whole team that does that with you, as assigned to you, HR, customer service managers, the whole deal, so that you have a great experience. And almost always within 3 or 4 interviews, you're picking the correct, perfect for you virtual assistant, and then they're with you really long term. We have an industry disrupting retention level. So if you guys, we take all the pain away, if you will. So for us, it's as quick as a quick call to us, 15-minute intake session. Interviews are lined up like that, and you're assured of having somebody that's a better fit for you than just randomly going out there hoping to find the right one.
Yeah. So, obviously within the process that you guys have, you've really been able to identify the qualities or characteristics that you want these virtual assistants to have. But I'm sure you've also identified some qualities and characteristics that you want the business owners to have as well to make that a good match long term. So tell me a little bit about the characteristics that maybe both sides need to have in order to have a successful match. Once you've identified maybe what type of skill set you need.
Yes. Oh gosh. And I'm so loving that you asked this question because this is very important. I always tell people, like sometimes we fire clients. I don't mean that to scare anybody, right? But it has to be the right fit for both sides. We want retention for both sides. Our core values are family first for our virtual assistants. We take care of them like family. We want them to have as just a powerful experience as the client is having that's hiring. So the client has to be they have to be ready and willing for a long-term investment of a virtual assistant. We're not short-term. So if you're looking for someone to do 1 month of work for you, that's probably not the right fit at our company. And there are plenty of places I can refer you to. But if you're looking for long-term, that's number one. Number two, are you ready to make the investment of growing a team member? This is something else. You're hiring a real person to be a part of your company, your mission statement, your core values. Like, what are those? And we're going to elicit those from you because we want to make sure that you have, again, a company that cares about who they hire. And are you willing to do the work to grow that individual, right? Are you going to train them? Are you going to show up to communicate with them? Are you going to abdicate, or are you going to be heavily involved with them so that they can excel and thrive and produce results for you, right? Yeah. So big part of that, guys. Like you've got to be ready. And I don't mean that, you got to be ready so you get that return on your investment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there are a lot of business owners out there that maybe have tried working with a virtual assistant in the past. And if it didn't work out, it's very easy to just place all the blame on the person who was working with you. But I think it's really important to look at yourself and the way that you interact with this team member and the structure that you provide to them so that you can ask yourself, was I a contributor to this problem? Or it is potentially that it wasn't the right fit or it wasn't the right person. But I think you do need to be very, very cautious about not placing all the blame on someone else if it doesn't work out, because too many times those business owners will hire someone and then expect them to know everything about their business already. If you don't have documentation and training and things like that for somebody, it doesn't matter if they have the skill set. They still have never worked with your business and through your processes before. So tell me how important you think that training is after you do find a virtual assistant. And let's kind of go through, what are the time frames in terms of how long you should consider a training period? Maybe what are some of the best practices for training this new team member?
Yes, and I love what you said. You guys can't abdicate. We have clients that will presuppose, well, I've hired a VA, so I can just wring my hands of whatever, and it's just miraculously going to happen for me. Well, but yet they'll hire someone in their office and they don't expect the same. So don't expect that with a virtual assistant, right? Some of these virtual assistants are more talented and more educated than you and I together. Like, they're amazing, but you've got to still give them what you want them to do. Yep. So everybody's business is unique. So here's what I encourage people to do. If you're going to hire someone in your office, most of us will create some sort of several weeks of training, expectations, performance measures, something for them to aspire to complete each week. Maybe it's a 90-day probationary period for a certain level of results. Consider doing exactly the same thing with your virtual assistants. As far as systems and training goes, well, whatever it is that you want the virtual assistant to do, is that something that you currently do or a team member does? Okay, great. Then record, right? Write down, create a recording, a procedures manual of everything that you do. So I have a natural inclination, almost a habit, that every time I go to do something, I think, well, who could do this for me? Not how, but who could do this for me? Okay, great. And then I will immediately use one of the tools I use. I use something called Snagit, but I will record my mouse and my voice doing a little 5 to 10 minute recording very quickly of that particular task or a process or procedure. And we put that into a Google Drive. And then I have a process where the virtual assistant has to go learn it, do a proficiency test for me that they've learned it. And now they have an archive of all the different things so that when I need them to do something later using that skill, they don't come and ask me how. They go into the archive, find that quick training, and they can immediately jump on it, right? Now, that took some investment by me to create all of that, but with the goal that I could get to a place where I'm not having to hold my virtual assistant's hand every day, and they're efficient and even use their own initiative to make the system even better because I've empowered them with the tools to do so. My last piece of that is part of the training. Communicate with your virtual assistants, like communicate with them every day, just like you would someone in your office. You wouldn't walk in and ignore them and not say good morning. Right? Okay, well, same thing with your virtual assistants. So I have an online platform I'm communicating with mine on throughout the day, or the different team members assigned are, and I'm checking in with them. Hey, how are things going? We hold meetings, team meetings. Like I have one of my businesses, we hold a 3:00 pulse meeting every day. It's 20 minutes long. I sometimes am on that meeting. I have a team leader that runs it every day at 3:00, and all the virtual assistants are on there. Right. They feel so excited to be a part of our community, even though they don't live anywhere close. They feel involved, right? So do communicate for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the different measures of communication that you think work well, is there any type of structure in terms of how frequently, what channels, things that you should be covering? For maybe somebody who has never had to hire this type of position before, what would you suggest in terms of those communication protocols?
Yeah, so for Riva Global, all of our virtual assistants are in the Philippines, right? And so the Philippines is literally 12 hours on the other side of the planet. Now, our virtual assistants are assigned to work the business hours that you work. As long as you let our intake people know that, they're going to work the hours your business runs, okay? So that's cool. That solves some communication issues, right? But I would say this. whatever you would normally do in your inside office, you want to do with your virtual assistants. So if you're an 8 a.m. morning meeting person, then you want to have 8 a.m. morning meetings with your virtual assistants every day. At the least, you're going to want to check in with them at least, end of business and start of business. All of the Riva Global virtual assistants are required to submit to you a start of business report and an end of business report. That's one of the things that we require. And we have a whole management team that's supporting your VAs all the time and checking in with them all day. And they're helping guide that process with you. You, though, however, yourself want to schedule whatever you can. As far as channels, Slack, right? WhatsApp, Glip is a platform I absolutely love, because with Glip, it's a Ring Central platform. I can Insta chat, send file attachments, do video calls like that. If I want to, I love the video chat with my virtual assistants so we can see each other and read our facial expressions. So those online platforms will all work for communicating with them. Just pick one and just stick with that until you think you need something more robust.
Yeah, I think those are absolutely awesome suggestions. And I've seen firsthand that the communication aspect is so important, especially if you are a little cautious in making sure that they are aware of what they should be doing and that things are going to be done correctly, and that that they are in fact working and that they feel confident about completing the tasks that they've been assigned. So outside of the communication, what other processes or maybe procedures, things that you would recommend that a business owner share with a virtual assistant in terms of let's call it maybe some cultural differences that you feel like need to be explained? Because I definitely know that there are some that come into play when hiring someone primarily outside of the country. Anything that you would share that would improve the success rate of hiring someone like this for the first time?
Yes, absolutely. So the first thing that comes to mind is that in the intake process, wherever you're going to hire virtual assistants, be crystal clear about what you're wanting the virtual assistants to do for you. Okay, this is important because it's not just culturally, we'll get to that too, but it's also just their strengths, their weaknesses, their backgrounds, their experience, their likes, their differences. Like we disc profile and predictive index all of our virtual assistants. We have them go through several different personality testing exams. Plus, we're verifying everything on their resume of experience. So we have a really good idea for what they fit best with. And to give a good example, let's say you're a business that you need inbound phone calls taken all day long for your business, and you need virtual support to be the interface, the first interface for your business with your customer base, right? Well, that's going to mean somebody with a strong language proficiency, strong communication skills, conversationalism, still attention to detail, also except to update your CRM or whatever you're using. But you need somebody who's is extroverted. They love to talk to people. They love people, right? These are very important. And oftentimes what I find is that business owners don't really let the intake team know that that's the type of tasks they want them to do. And they don't end up with the right fit of virtual assistant. Someone that's going to do spreadsheets all day and data entry, who cares what their language proficiency is necessarily, right? Because they have a different round of tasks. Which brings me to some cultural things. Now with the Philippines, which is, in my opinion, I'm a little biased, obviously, but in my opinion, one of the best countries to hire from. Their family values in the Philippines match ours very much so here in the States. Family value, they value education, they have extreme work ethic, and they love to please and get affirmation. So this is part of that cultural thing, right? So understand with your virtual assistants that they sometimes may not seem like they're willing to state their opinion or be initiative driven or be aggressive or assertive. And that's simply because culturally that's not the norm. Okay. Yeah. So same thing. If you need to hire someone who's going to think on their feet and make big opinions then you need to let the intake team know that, because personalities are 180 degrees and we got to pick the one that's going to have a little more inclination for that than one that isn't. Also understand that you want to empower the virtual assistants to be willing to tell you what they think. Right. Like Oz, who was one of the guys on my acquisitions team, I praise him, celebrate achievement all the time when he uses his initiative, when he tells me his opinion, when he says something could be done better. I'm like, yes, thank you, Oz, because he was willing and he feels very empowered now at this phase to almost work with me in a managerial role versus just bottom virtual support.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately that's what every business owner is looking for, even in something like a virtual support role. I think no one wants a team member who is constantly needing direction on every single aspect. You want someone who feels good about making decisions in the moment. Obviously, your training is going to be a big part of that to help them understand what decisions are even going to need to be made and where they have that flexibility. But you don't get what you don't ask for. If you don't tell someone that you want to hear their thoughts, that you want them to take initiative on certain things, or really show them that this is a collaborative environment as opposed to like, I give you direction, you follow the direction, and that's the extent of the relationship, then that's all you're ever going to get. And I do feel that, no matter what the role is, anyone who's willing to give you feedback, that's something you should really, really want, because they are the people that are dealing with those tasks on a daily basis. And even the way that you were doing it previously, if this was a task that, you did and now you're outsourcing to someone else, there may be better ways to do that than you were doing before, more efficient ways, more effective ways. And you should really want to know those things, because sometimes small improvements in a process can really go a long way in getting more done or getting better results in that task. So I think that's important.
Yes. And just like you said, we wouldn't want somebody in our own offices to be not feel empowered. So understand you must empower them, which requires, as leaders, right? When we're the leader or the manager, we want to recognize and affirm when they do step up so that they are neurologically encouraged to do that time, right? And it becomes almost an autonomic, and then they feel very connected to your business. Let them feel connected, have them feel connected to your mission statement and core values and your goals of your company, and be just as transparent with your virtual support as you are with the people in your office, so they feel like they're a part of the big result. Celebrate with them, right? So make that a big deal. It's something we're really big about at Reba.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. So I've also noticed something kind of, across a lot of the different business owners that we've seen hiring virtual assistants. And one of those things is, constantly changing expectations or processes after someone has begun working with them. Can you share any insights on kind of how to set someone up for success from day one and not really leave them confused as to what's expected or what's required of them?
Yeah, get really specific with a job description and that daily reporting requirements, what their goals are, set performance metrics, just like, again, we do with hires in our office. You really want to do that. If you change gears all the time, that's how we disempower our team members. They don't know what to do. And then they start to stress over, well, I don't want to upset them. I want to do what I'm supposed to do, but then they don't even know what to reach for, to be affirmed for. And they don't, right? So don't, that doesn't mean that things are, we're not trees, right? We can get up and move, and things aren't in cement. We do change things, but communicate that well with your virtual assistant. Have a meeting with them. Say, listen, I know this was something we were having you do. We've decided, here's why. We've decided not to do this anymore, and now we're going to do this. So they feel a part of the process, not that they failed you and now you're just taking it away from them or confusing them and having them go another way. I have a personal assistant who is for me personally, Ron, and poor thing, he has the most mutable role, because of all the people that support me, he's the one that has the most ebb and flow and change to what he does. And so I work very closely with him to make sure that he always recognizes why, understands, so that at a chunked up level, all those adjustments still get us to the goal, and that makes sense to him, right? But he's the right personality for that. And so that came through our process, right? And do communicate with them why you're making adjustments. Don't leave them in the dark.
Yeah, no, I think that advice is really key, because you're so right. If someone does not understand the reasoning behind something, they're not really getting the full picture. And that could be, you're giving them instructions for a task, even if they don't understand the behind the scenes purpose of the thing that they're creating or producing or doing. It may be more difficult for them to fulfill the requirements that you're looking for. So for example, someone that works with us, we have them working on like a lot of the back end tech stuff that we share with our students. So the purpose of these different resources is to make it very, very easy for one of my students to take this resource, fill in a couple of details, and kind of have it ready to go out of the gate. Well, if he didn't understand that that was the purpose of these things that he was working on, he may have made a lot of changes or different decisions,
Yeah.
thinking that maybe this was just going to be used one time in one specific instance.
Yeah.
Knowing that this is more of a template type of resource gives him an understanding of maybe how to structure things on a granular level to make it easier for someone who would be utilizing that. So again, it doesn't necessarily always seem glaringly obvious that we should be sharing these behind the scenes reasons or these whys with those certain tasks, but it really does a lot to just improve decision making, at least in my opinion.
And intention setting is so key, right? Like they need to understand the intention of everything, not so they don't. And also it also makes them feel closer to you and to your company. And so they want the better result. It's also, it deepens their desire for the better result. So give them the clear intention for sure.
Yeah. So you've mentioned the personality test a couple of different times throughout this conversation. How important do you feel that, the DISC profile and the different personality types and personality matches are when it comes to finding the right fit?
Well, I think it's essential. I think it's essential hiring in your office. Now, I'm also believe in gut, right? But the reality is that you can't, I use the phrase, if you ask a fish to climb a tree, you'll both be frustrated, right? And we see people do this all the time in business, right? They hire someone and they're just hopeful that they can go do this role, but it doesn't have anything to do with who they are. Okay. Yeah. So it is essential. So guys that are listening, even if you're not going to hire virtual support, but you're hiring and scaling your teams, I would absolutely include some sort of personality profiling. Now, do understand that some people can still score on a personality profile a certain way, but still excel at something you would think they couldn't. Okay. So still be listening for their experience, where their passion seems to be, where their strengths and their experience and their background supports that. But we do that at Riva because, again, we want the process to be honing in on the right ones. And so we don't select the final VA for you. What we're doing is we're giving you 4 or 5, some 3, 4, 5 virtual assistants that we believe fit the box, right? Yeah. Where you can have that opportunity to have that gut response, but at least they're within the range from a skilled scenario, right? And we do more than one personality test to help build that overlying or overlapping look at who they are.
Yeah, so the personality is something that I've definitely paid a lot more attention to over the years. And for example, appointment setting. So this is a role that a lot of people could be utilizing if they're not utilizing, taking those leads that you're already generating and that maybe aren't purchasing right away or scheduling a call or an appointment right away, and really trying to start those conversations. People would be very surprised at how much additional revenue that can bring in. So this is really a revenue producing activity, but it's not something necessarily that, someone inside of your immediate team has to be doing. However, there is a very specific type of personality that I believe is required for that, just having tested out several different people over the years. That extroverted, that very friendly and upbeat and conversational personality is essential, even if someone has never done that specific type of task before. So I have tried people who have, technically had experience in the appointment setting space versus people who have not. The people who did have experience were not really the right personality type. The people who had no experience were the right personality type. The right personality type won out every time, because it doesn't matter how much training or experience someone has. If they are a natural introvert or are not excited about having real, genuine conversations, they will never be the right fit for that role. So I do think it is something to really weigh, what is more important, experience versus personality type? Well, obviously, you're looking to find a fit with both, but sometimes the right person is not going to have experience doing the specific task that you're looking for, but I would identify up front, like, are there tasks that I am looking for that personality may be more important than previous experience? And you can just train them on the steps to do that specific task. Absolutely. So do you feel that the DISC profile is one of the better personality assessments you found, or do you prefer a couple of others?
I think that there are several that are important. If you have access to predictive index, I think that's good. And anagrams are another good one to use. But I do believe in an overlay. Now, the cool thing about the DISC profiles, it's quick, it's simple, and it does give a good general score. But to your point, right? Sometimes people will still score a certain way in a DISC profile and it doesn't absolutely match where their natural passionate inclinations go, right? And like, for instance, we hire a lot of people who are doing sales or social selling, right? And maybe they have tons of experience on a call floor for, especially in the Philippines, that call centers are big there. But just because you worked at a call center doesn't mean that you're good on the phone, right? Okay, so it's the same thing. So, and social selling, by the way, which is generally all messaging and things like that. I love social sellers. They still have to enjoy that, right? And so the DISC profile will lead into a little bit of that. And then from there, you're going to want to overlay what the other profiles say. And then you're going to want to ask questions in the interview process to help elicit further, whether that's something that they're really good at doing, right? I might put them on the spot even and say, I was sitting here and I just had someone message me and they didn't book an appointment. What would you do? Right. And just see what they naturally respond with in the interview and look at their facial expressions, their IR, what are they showing you with their body language too? Do they get excited? Like, oh, this is what I would do. I would send them, okay, well, that's somebody that's probably going to be good at that, even if they've never done it before. So yeah, the different profiles are good. To like you were talking about cold calling, social selling, it's a high D, high I on a DISC profile. Right. But I still need a little bit of that S&C because they got to be able to put their data in. So
yeah, absolutely. So two of the things that I have found critically important for anyone who works with or for me is the attention to detail and the ability to accurately follow instructions, because it doesn't really matter what the position is. Those two things are incredibly important. Otherwise, you're going to end up spending so much of your time either redoing things or reviewing things that were not correct and giving feedback, and maybe having to do that same thing over and over again if someone is not taking the feedback and implementing it. So what have you found to help a business owner really evaluate that skill up front, or those skills, or maybe ways to help that virtual assistant within those two different scopes to be successful?
So in the front end, tasking is a really cool thing to do in the interview process. And our client service managers and HR people will absolutely help support you in that. You can send a task over and say, here's some instructions, right? Here's what I need you to do. I even do this in my hiring in my office when we interview screen. The interview process to even get an interview requires them following instructions. If they can't follow instructions, I don't want to waste my time on the interview, right? And I have little weird things in there, like I might share in there somewhere the name of my dog, and then later I ask them the question, what was the name of my dog, right? I'm looking for attention to detail. Do they remember that? So do some upfront screening and tasking. You can even do that in the virtual assistant hiring process with us if you have something specific. We just hired another person in our marketing department who's doing some social selling and some video editing and stuff. We actually gave them a set of instructions, like this is things we need you to turn over to us in this format and so forth. And if it wasn't in the format we wanted, they weren't going to get an interview, right? So do the same. I think that's clear. And then you got to get really clear about what you want them to do from there forward. Guys, again, you can't abdicate, right? If you want them to follow instructions, but you're not actually checking in that they followed instructions, and that's where I see most people kind of drop the ball. They're like, oh, I'm so frustrated because they never follow instructions. But if you didn't meet with them every day in the first 90 days to make sure that they are, that's on you, not on them.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. So, when it comes to someone that maybe you start to see some signs that it may not be a good fit, what is your advice on how long to give that person, kind of what the checks are in terms of, okay, we've given them X number of opportunities to do X, Y, and Z. What is your best practices for understanding if it's time to move on and maybe find someone else?
Yeah. So what's the whole thing? We're all supposed to, hire slow, fire fast, right? Okay. It's sometimes easier said than done. So some of you that are listening are like, I know, but I didn't really want to let him go, or I'm still holding on to someone now. I totally get that. You had, again, setting those clear measures of performance that they have to reach makes it very simple to make those decisions. You're reaching it, you're not reaching it. You can give them probationary periods. You can give them, you have, I always say, here's a rope to hang on or hang yourself, but it sounds awful, but like here's the amount of time you have until this date to correct this issue and show me that this is still important to you and get the results that we've both agreed on are the results we should have. period. Okay. If you've communicated that well and you're documenting everything and they're still not reaching that metric and you know you're not the issue, then it's time to let them go. At Riva Global, we understand that. We understand that not every fit will always work out. We actually offer a guarantee program at Riva Global that we will immediately go into our pool of talent and immediately set up another round of interviews for you, right? So that you can get to replace them with someone else. Here I am at Riva Global, right? As one of the companies that I'm so involved in. And I myself have let virtual assistants go from our own talent pool because they just simply weren't the right fit. It does happen. It can happen. So not very often, it's very infrequent if you go through the process well in the beginning. But just understand it's okay to say this is not working, okay? But maybe give them a week or two of sort of probationary efforts to correct whatever the issue is, right? And communicate. I'll add one thing. We have client service managers that we assign. So if you hire one of our virtual assistants, you're not an island by yourself with your VA. We actually also have a whole team that's going to stay in contact with you all the time. And we assign a CSM, and that client service manager or CSM is going to reach out to you frequently. How are things going? How's your engagement with the VA? Do you need help? You know, they're also asking the VA the same questions because they want to make sure, right? Let them know if you're having an issue. They will also help guide and hold that VA to the performance you're expecting. And they'll meet with you and like that they might even tell you, you know what, I think we need to put a different one in place for that.
Yeah, I think that's amazing advice. So this conversation has been incredibly helpful. Amy, if you could leave one final piece of advice or any tips or insights with the audience today, what would that be?
Oh, I don't know, my head went here first, so apologies in advance, people, but I would say let things go. Get out of your own way and let things go. This is probably and we didn't even talk a lot about this, but this is the thing. This all sounds like a really cool idea. I'm going to go hire a virtual support, but so many of you are going to get off of this podcast and not go do it.
Yeah.
Okay. And just don't do that to yourselves. Like let some things go. Give yourself the gift of some time freedom back, some efficiency back in your life. Most of us became entrepreneurs for the dream of entrepreneurship so that we could have all of our freedom and not have to work for someone else. And then we're overwhelmed. Okay. If you're feeling overwhelmed, it's time to take things off your plate. Give yourself back the purpose and reason you went and became an entrepreneur business owner in the first place. Let things go. Get out of your own way.
and truthfully, don't believe that you're the only person that can do a certain thing the right way, because usually that is the farthest thing from the truth. It's usually little insignificant types of tasks that are really eating up your ability to grow your business, because that time is not being spent on those things that are important but not necessarily urgent, and you're getting yourself stuck in that cycle of either putting out fires or doing that busy work that makes you feel productive but is not actually helping you grow your business.
And what if you did have more time for what matters most to you? And by the way, everyone listening, that's a different thing. For some of you, that's more revenue. Sometimes that's more time with your family. There's no right or wrong. It's all right. Yeah. But what if you had more time for what matters most to you? That's what virtual support can give you. And oh, by the way, some of these virtual assistants, they're way better than me at doing things that I wasn't willing to give up because nobody could do it as good as me. They run circles around me, right? Okay, so allow yourself to go work on your strengths and give everything else out to someone else to do.
Yeah, that is such great advice. So Amy, where can people learn more about you, learn more about Riva Global, and find you?
Okay, absolutely. So simple. You can just go to the Riva Global website. No joke. RivaGlobal.com. It's REVA global.com. Go there and a little window is going to pop up for you to schedule a 15-minute strategy session. Absolutely go do that. I would love personally for you guys to follow me. You can find me on Instagram, Amy Ransdell _B Powerhouse. They're starting to build up my Instagram stuff. I'm not all in charge of that, but that's what's being done. And if you go through the Riva Global website, you still want to get some feedback from me on something, don't hesitate to message me. Myself or the perfect team member will reach right back out to you. So, but we definitely want to help as many of you as possible. Let us know that you heard about us from this podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You guys definitely do that. Hopefully you will really take this advice and information to heart today. It's something I know a lot of you really need to hear. And if you guys do have any experiences with virtual assistants after this podcast, I'd love to hear them. So shoot me a message, let me know how it's been going. I think that would be awesome. So thank you again, Amy, for being here today. It's been awesome.
Oh, I so appreciate this. You guys are my favorite type of listeners. So go crush it. And if we can help, we're here for you.